Hello, I'm about to show you something unique, something that no one has seen in almost 100 years. This is John Carl Hillers. He's born 1843 in Hanover, Germany, and died in 1925. He's a rather famous photographer. Some of his artwork is hanging in the Smithsonian and several other museums. Anyway, a lifelong buddy of mine was contacted by an elderly woman who had inherited an estate, and in the basement, in a dark corner, in a very dark corner apparently, were odds and ends, including some lost prints from John K. Hiller. The back and the bottom, or confirmed that it's his artwork. He had a quick flight to Colorado, so I'm gonna have to apologize for the photographs here in a second that I'm going to show you, because he basically propped them up against the wall and used a small point and shoot to take pictures of them. And I straightened them up a little bit and cropped them, but I didn't change the contrast or whatnot. And of course, they've got some nasty age spots and a little bit of mildew damage. This is Hillers himself, and he came to the United States in 1852. He was a policeman and a soldier in the American Civil War, and he went on some famous expeditions with Powell to navigate and record the Colorado River in 1871. And he began to replace Mr. Powell, Powell's cousin, as the assistant to the expedition's photographer. Apparently, he became enamored with photography. So Hiller became the chief expedition photographer through the Grand Canyon, and went on later to photograph much of the very early and wild American West. And he's famous, especially his pictures and portraits that are in the Smithsonian of Native Americans. Here's one of his images, his photos. This is a very gorgeous shot. Here in a second I'll show you some of this is also another famous image of his. And let me see, go on to another one. Gorgeous shot. Obviously, these are really old, and my images are not necessarily as interesting as these, but they haven't been seen in nearly 100 years. And anyway, she brought them to my buddy to have them evaluated, and they've got quite a few age spots. And since they're photos, photo of a photo propped up against the wall, it's as good as I can do. So let's take a look at a world-famous photographer who passed away back in 1925. There's some 3,000 negatives and over 20,000 survey negatives that belong to the Bureau of Ethnology, and basically ended up working for the early American government as so far as ethnology of photography, and worked for the Bureau of American Ethnology, photographing the early Wild West and well, not the very earliest Wild West, but part of the early Wild West, and Native Americans, and a lot of the stuff before it became spoiled. So let's take a look at one of his first images nobody's seen. Obviously, this is deteriorated due to being stored in a basement. I mean, it's surprised it's lasted this long. So you can imagine what this print looked like. And of course, this is just a picture of a picture. But you can imagine what this print looked like, so many decades ago. And what the original contrast range was. But you could still tell what his compositional eye was taking a look at this long-lost photograph from Hillers. Let's take a look at a second image that was taken. And remember back then, I mean, he is a billion miles from, if you fall and break your leg, I mean, you're dead and gone, and he's hauling some heavy photographic gear, and he's processing this stuff out in the field, or he's actually having it sent back, depending on which expedition it is. So, I mean, he's got nobody. He's out there photographing and putting his neck on the line to take shots like this, it's rather amazing. Being out there alone is one thing, but actually taking the time to think about composition and, capturing the scene. Gorgeous shots. Obviously, it's faded and the water spots and whatnot, but you could tell what it looked like originally. We're talking about stuff that dates back to the early 1920s, if not before, on these images. And these were just uncovered too last week, so I'm showing these to you, and you're the first person ever to see them, other than the old lady that discovered them in the basement. So let's take a look at another image. Obviously, this is not obviously this is not the Wild West, but this is one of his images on his travels. Gorgeous shot. We could think to see what it looked like back before this image was faded and kind of destroyed over the decades. You can imagine it, a gorgeous shot. And let's take a look at a fourth image. This one out of the 8, I believe there are a few more than 8, but he only had time to capture 8 of the most important images before he had to rush to the airport. So this is the best surviving one. It must have been protected somehow. Let's zoom in a little closer. So remember, this is a picture of a picture on a point-and-shoot camera. So yeah, obviously I would have scanned them in on a flatbed scanner, but he didn't have time for that. The tonal range is just gorgeous. I mean, I could see why he took this picture. It's absolutely beautiful. We can imagine it. I mean, it's good enough as it is, nearly 100 years old. You can imagine what the original looked like in its original tonal range and contrast and beauty. As beautiful as it is, having survived so long. Let's take a look at this image. We have a person right up here. Like I said, these are early expeditions when the nearest hospital is hundreds of miles away. I mean, you get hurt, you're guaranteed to die, pretty much anyway. Gorgeous shot. You could ignore the water spots and what the original image was. Talk about seeing something that no one else had seen before. You're seeing something no one else has seen before on several different levels. You're seeing these photographs we are for the first time in nearly 100 years. You and I and the old lady that discovered them. But also these people were actually seeing something that no one else had seen before of America, except for, maybe some Native Americans that were, who knows how close they were to this particular image where it was taken. And let's take a look at another image. Down in a canyon, obviously. We can only imagine when he was thinking of taking a look at the dynamic range of this image, and him and his skills, his cowboy photography skills of imagining what the proper exposure. Who knows how many plates he threw away to get this perfect. He might have got it right on the first try. He probably did. You get a feel for film after a while, and you pretty much know when you look at a scene what your exposure needs to be. So, gorgeous shot. And let's take a look at a seventh image. Obviously extremely faded, not well taken care of, but we can imagine what the original looked like and what he saw when he was looking first with his eyes, and then I don't know which camera he actually used for this. It's probably an early 4x5 of some portable variety. I don't know which particular one that he used, but very interesting. And let's take a look at the last image. I had cropped a part of this off up here. It's an arch, so it's actually a natural bridge arch up here at the top. So how he actually framed this is through the natural bridge in whatever canyon this was and whatever place it was, he took it. And we could see his compositional, his cowboy photography composition, which is of course timeless. I mean, humans recognize compositional beauty, whether they have the skills or not. I mean, this is timeless. No matter if it's 100 years ago or if they had cameras 1,000 years ago, which of course they didn't, and we still recognize, the frame, the capture, the moment, the exhilaration of getting the perfect artistic composition and seeing the light and the composition work together to create this beautiful wonder. This is his last of his images, and glad I could show this to you all. I hope you weren't too bored, but at least you got to take a look at some long-lost images of a famous photographer whose work currently hangs in several prestigious museums, one of which is including the Smithsonian. And an early pioneer. I mean, we bitch and moan about packing heavy DSLRs in our air-conditioned cars to places, and this guy was risking his life and limb, to take photographs and, developing stuff out in the field. I mean, kind of makes you get proper perspective on the stuff that we complain about. Let me zoom in as a last on him here. This is a picture of, I don't know who took it, but this is a picture of John K. Hillers right here. And I don't know what he's doing. It's kind of occluded. I think he's looking at a negative. This must be his box of plates over here. Dead serious with a heavy beard. And there's the old mule horse back there. A couple of them. There's the mule over here. Or is that a donkey? I don't know if that's a donkey or that's a mule. Anyway, them hauling all his photographic plates, and obviously here's. I mean, look at that huge tripod. I mean, we complain. I mean, people complain about the stuff that they got to pack around. This guy's packing it around out in the wild. I mean, look at that tripod, that wooden legs. I mean, he probably broke a leg or two and probably whittled another spare leg out of a tree branch back here at several points in time. So here's to a true pioneer. He's been dead now for nearly 100 years, and you are the first people to get to see his photographs, some of them, his lost photographs again. So, thanks for watching, and tribute to you, John K. Hillers. You make a heavy Nikon D3 and a 300mm 2.8 look like a mirrorless point and shoot by comparison. Congratulations, kudos. Bye. Thanks for watching.